I beg you for my sister's sake, have mercy on her, mercy. Guard her well, I pray you. At that moment even Talberg, who had never been a prey to sentimental feelings, recalled the dense black chords and the tattered pages of the age-old family copy of Faust. Never again would Talberg hear the cavatina O God Almighty, never again hear Elena accompanying Chervinsky as he sang. But long after the Turbans and Talbergs have departed this life the keys will ring out again and Valentine will step up to the footlights, the aroma of perfume will waft from the boxes and at home beautiful women under the lamplight will play the music, because Faust, like the shipwright of Sardam, is quite immortal. Talberg stood beside the piano as he said his piece. The brothers listened in polite silence, trying not to raise their eyebrows, the younger from pride, the elder from lack of courage. Talberg's voice shook. You will look after Elena, won't you? The upper layer of Talberg's eyes looked at them anxiously, pleadingly. He stuttered, glanced awkwardly at his pocket watch and said nervously, "It's time to go." Elena embraced her husband, hastily made a fumbling sign of the cross over him and kissed him. Talberg brushed his brothers-in-law on the cheek with his clipped, bristly mustache. With a nervous glance through his wallet he checked the thick bundle of documents in it, recounted the thinner wad of Ukrainian money and German marks, then smiling tensely he turned and went. The light went on in the lobby, there came the sound of his trunk bumping downstairs. Leaning over the banisters, the last thing that Elena saw was the sharp peak of his hood. At 1 o'clock in the morning an armored train like a grey toad pulled out from track 5, through the dark graveyards of rows of idle, empty freight cars, snorting and picking up speed as it spat hot sparks from its ash pit and hooted like a wild beast. Covering 6 miles in 7 minutes it reached Post-Volensk with a roar and a rattle and a flash of its lights, arousing a vague sense of hope and pride in the cadets and officers huddled in railroad cars or on guard duty. Without slowing down the armored train was switched off the main line and headed boldly away towards the German frontier. After it, 10 minutes later, a passenger train with a colossal locomotive and dozens of brilliantly lit windows passed through Post-Volensk. Massive as obelisks and swathed to the eyes, German sentries flashed by on the platforms at the end of the cars, their black bayonets glinting. Hunched up from the cold and lit by rapid shafts of light from the windows, the switchman watched as the long Pullman cars rattled over the junction. Then everything vanished and the cadets were seized with envy, resentment and alarm. "Ah, the swine!" a voice groaned from the switches as the blistering gust of a snowstorm lashed the railroad cars housing the cadets. That night post was snowed up. In the third car back from the locomotive, in a compartment upholstered in checkered calico, smiling politely and ingratiatingly, Thalberg sat opposite a German lieutenant and spoke German. "Oh, ja," drawled the fat lieutenant from time to time and chewed his cigar. When the lieutenant had fallen asleep, when all the compartment doors were shut and all that could be heard in the warm, brilliantly lit car was the monotonous click of the wheels, Thalberg went out into the corridor, opened one of the pale-colored blinds with their transparent letters. Z. WRR and stared long into the darkness. Occasional sparks, snow flickered past, and in front the locomotive raced on and with a howl that was so sinister, so threatening that even Thalberg was unpleasantly affected by it. In the downstairs apartment at number 13, which belonged to Vasily Lasovich, engineer and householder, absolute silence reigned at that hour of the night, a silence only occasionally disturbed by a mouse in the dining room. Busily and insistently the mouse gnawed and gnawed away at an old rind of cheese, cursing the meanness of the engineer's wife, Wanda Mikhailovna. The object of this abuse, the bony and jealous Wanda, was sound asleep in the dark bedroom of their damp, chilly apartment. Lasovich himself was still awake and ensconced in his study, a draped, book-lined, over-furnished and consequently extremely cozy little room. The standard lamp, in the shape of an Egyptian queen and shaded in green-flowered material, lit the room with a gentle mysterious glow. There was something mysterious, too, about the engineer himself in his deep leather armchair. The mystery and ambiguity of those uncertain times was expressed above all in the fact that the man in the armchair was not Vasily Lasovich at all, but Vasilisa. He, of course, called himself Lasovich. Many of the people he met called him Vasily, but only to his face. Behind his back no one ever called him anything but Vasilisa. This had come about because since January 1918, when the strangest things began happening in the city, the owner of number 13 altered his distinctive signature, and from a vague fear of committing himself to some document that might be held against him in the future, instead of a bold B. Lasovich, he began signing his name on questionnaires, forms, certificates, orders and ration cards as Vas. Lease. On January 18, 1918, with a sugar ration card signed by Vasily Lasovich, instead of sugar, Nikolka had received a terrible blow on his back from a stone on the Khreshchatyk and had spat blood for 2 days. A shell had burst right over the heads of some brave people standing in line for sugar. When he reached home, clutching the wall and turning green, Nikolka had managed to smile so as not to alarm Elena. Then he had spat out a bowl full of blood, and when Elena shrieked, "God, what's happened to you?" he replied. "It's Vasilisa's sugar, damn him." After that he turned white and collapsed. Nikolka was out of bed again 2 days later, but Vasily Lasovich had ceased to exist. At first only the people living at number 13, then soon the whole city began calling him Vasilisa, until the only person who introduced him as Lasovich was the bearer of that girl's name himself. After making sure that the street was quiet at last, with not even the occasional creak of sleigh runners to be heard, and listening attentively to the whistling sound coming from his wife in the bedroom, Vasilisa went out into the lobby. There he carefully checked the locks, bolt, chain and door handle and returned to his study, where he produced 4 shiny safety pins from a drawer of his massive desk. He tiptoed away somewhere into the darkness and returned with a rug and a towel. Again he stopped and listened, even putting his finger to his lips. He pulled off his jacket, rolled up his sleeves and took down from a shelf a pot of glue, a length of wallpaper neatly rolled into a tube, and a pair of scissors. Then he sidled up to the window and, shielded by his hand, looked out into the street. With the aid of the safety pins he hung the towel over the top half of the left-hand window and the rug over the right-hand window, arranging them with care lest there should be any cracks. Taking a chair he climbed up on it and fumbled for something above the topmost shelf of books, ran the point of a little knife vertically down the wallpaper, then sideways at a right angle. Next he inserted the blade under the cut to reveal a small, neat hiding place the size of 2 bricks, made by himself during the previous night. He removed the cover, a thin rectangle of zinc, climbed down, glanced fearfully at the windows and patted the towel. From the depths of a lower drawer, which opened with a tinkling double turn of the key, there came to light a package carefully wrapped in newspaper, sealed and tied crisscross with string. This Vasilisa immured in his secret cache and replaced the cover. For a long while he stood on the red cloth of the chair cover and cut out pieces of wallpaper until they exactly fitted the pattern. Smeared with glue, they covered the gap perfectly, half a spray of flowers matching its other half, square matching square. When the engineer climbed down from his chair, he was positive that there was not a sign of his secret hiding place in the wall. Vasilisa rubbed his hands with exultation, crumpled up the scraps of wallpaper and burned them in the little stove, then pounded up the ashes and hid the glue.